So let me play from the beginning of the bass entrance of this break section. I'm getting my chart lined up here so I play it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very end, we go to this E minor to end that section. Let me do it one more time here, a little bit slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the very end there. We go to that low E and then the very high E. So you got to count through these rhythms here. Also, I want you to notice that the articulation, we have dotted notes, dotted quarter notes. So even though we're playing like quarter notes, we're going to play them short. That's what the dot means underneath the quarter note. So let me play it up to speed now, and hopefully, you know, the drum part that Alan White's playing complements all this. So really, to get the feel for it, you need to play with the YouTube video or the recording if you have it to get the vibe. 1. Sort of playing on back into the riff again. It's going to be some tricky reading on this, and it's going to put your skills to the test to get those syncopations right. The good news is Chris is such an aggressive player that you can really hear his bass part super clear in the recording, and it's sort of a great exercise to get into the rhythms of this while being able to hear his part so clearly in the mix. I mean, I love the sound of his bass. I love that gnarly sound. I think it's awesome. Okay, so at the very end of this, we end up on a low E. And then we have the anticipation going back into the riff again. But then on the third time through the riff, we end up on that B sustained for a second. That's where the keyboard does its crazy riff. So, to slow it down, we're ending on the and of 4, tied over to the next bar. Again, a lot of dead notes in there, just picking through. And then we anticipate back again into the riff. And we're going to come up on another little tricky part. So back into the riff. 2, 3, 4. This next part, I even call it tricky. Because I mean, on paper it doesn't look tricky, but the way the count is. Let me break this down for the rhythm. We start off, we have a full quarter note rest, then 2 8th notes, then another quarter note rest, then an 8th note. So this is really not too difficult for the first bar. So it's 1, bump, bump, 3, bump. 1, 2 and 3, 4. Okay? What's kind of tricky in the recording is we have the fancy keyboard riff that's going on top of this, and it's sort of a break. There's the keyboard riff that happens really fast. So it feels like everything gets crazy there, but really it's just a 1 quarter note rest. So here's where the music can really help you make the part easier, even though the band and the recording sounds very complicated. If you stick with the chart, you'll be okay. So quarter note rest, then 2 and 3 is a rest, a quarter note rest, then 1/8 note on beat 4. Then in the next bar, things get a little bit off. So we have an 1/8 note rest, so 1, and then we have a quarter note on A on the and of 1, 1 and. Then we have a whole quarter note rest on beat 2. Then we play on beat 3 a quarter note. Then we have an 1/8 note on the beginning of beat 4, or I'm sorry, 1/8 note rest on the beginning of beat 4, and then the last F sharp for the last note of this section. So let me play it at speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4. Oh, sorry. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that last F sharp, that's the last note of the section. You're done at that point. So at the end of this trick section, you go back into the verse again. We go back to that whole form. So let me play it for you at speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Well, back into the whole verse section. So there you go. If you got that trick section, you can get through that okay. I think you're doing pretty good.